Today we have a very special guest joining us all the way from California State University, San Marcos. He is the director of the Black Student Center. He's the interim director of the Gender Equity Center, and he is the second grade mayor of Magic School Bus Town. Please welcome John Rawlins III.
What's going on, everybody? Oh, the second grade mayor of Magic School Bus Town.
It's true, right?
Very, very true. Yeah, and my teacher looked like Miss Frizzle, and so
Yeah,
that's how I came up with it.
that's so fun. That's so fun. I was looking at your list of places that you have worked and gone to school. So here's a little game. Fast as you can, starting with undergrad, name the institution, your major, and then name the next institution and your job title. Ready, go.
Okay. All right. Cornell University, Human Development. I worked at Ithaca College. Then I worked at Johns Hopkins University. Got a master's from Johns Hopkins University in communications. Worked for Alpha corporate headquarters, and now CSUSM.
What a career! What a journey! And now you're in fancy California.
I am.
Awesome. That is awesome. So in any of those institutions prior to being where you are now, had you ever done a virtual engagement at all?
No, not at all. I mean, this is brand new. I mean, really for me, in terms of connecting with folks in various places through like programming and events. No, this is new.
But you've really come out as a leader in being able to use it effectively. Right?
Yeah.
How do you what do you love most about engaging with the folks on campus and in the community?
I think what I like the most, I was thinking about this recently. It's really that everyone is, literally right there in that front row. There's not that distance that you have sometimes where, your folks who are truly engaged are at the front, and in the middle, they're a little engaged, in the back, they maybe sleep. But literally everyone is in this kind of like front row, especially when your cameras are on and folks are sharing and participating. It's actually really, really nice to be able to engage everyone seemingly on the same kind of playing field.
And you work with a lot of different student groups, right?
I do.
Do you meet with them all the time?
I often, very often. Yeah, they've. I feel like in some regards, with students, even with other staff and faculty, I'm meeting with people a lot more in the virtual space. Just because there's no like travel time between this and that. It's everyone sitting in front of their desk and it's click the button and you're right there. So I feel like it's one of those things where you're meeting regularly and having these conversations, and the access is a little bit different, but it's good. It's a good different for me.
Now, you're saying you're meeting more often with more people than you would have in person?
Yeah, and I had a lot of meetings in person. I already did. It just seems like everyone's pretty accessible, right? So even if it's one of those, I have, of course, my scheduled stuff, but even if it's, hey, you have a second to chat, and then we'll get on the video and we'll be talking and engaging. It's right. Happening much more often.
Right, and with all that time on the computer, how are you feeling at the end of every day?
Zoom fatigue is real. It is real, but I've managed to find the balance, I think, for me that works, and it's not overwhelming. Of course, some days you might feel a little drained, but you got to do the things you need to do to recharge and to go for it the next day with just as much energy and excitement as you possibly can.
What sort of advice would you give to a guy like me or advisors out there who are on the computers all day? What do you do to recharge?
So for me, one, you definitely have to take breaks, and make sure that again, people are accessible more often, but at the same time, making sure that you're giving yourself space to recharge and to regroup. Also thinking about and being more intentional about the time that you take to do things outside of the meetings, outside of work. For me, in all of this, my cooking has become a lot more creative. Like I'm not making the same, 5 dishes all the time, with a little variation here and there. I'm actually getting kind of creative with what I'm making, the plating, all that kind of stuff, because I find cooking relaxing. So that's one thing. And then for me also, music is a big piece for me, whether it's listening to music, singing or songwriting. It's one of those things that I've been a little bit more intentional now that I'm in a different space. I'm in my apartment all the time. But it's one of those things. It's like, all right, I got to take a break to do this. And then by the time I get back onto another Zoom or do an event, I feel like I have a whole new energy and I'm ready to go.
Do you post pictures of your food online? Is that something that you do?
More recently, I have. And it was actually funny because last week I made a bunch of stuff and told myself I was going to post it like after I made it and took the pictures. And I didn't. So I think Saturday I did like a larger post with, what I made and the plating and folks seemed to like it. I had a couple folks who said, "Hey, I'm on my way over." I said, "I need you to social distance. You can't come over right now." But they just it's relaxing for me. So yeah, I like taking the pictures of it and seeing kind of the evolution of what I've been able to do.
We'll have to share your Instagram with everybody then.
Absolutely, that works.
Right, we'll put that in the comments below. Knowing that other people have Zoom fatigue, are there things that you are able to do to engage them in a way that's out of the ordinary?
Well, I mean, for one, this might not necessarily be as out of the ordinary, but I always make sure that I have to bring the energy, right? Because that's important. I think folks in person still, people feed off of the energy that you give, especially if you're the one who's hosting or conducting the program or the event. So making sure that the energy is high. I also tend to use a number of props around me and things that I just have at home that work, especially with one of the things that I do are these kind of, music-based kind of social dance party type things that a group that I work with has. And so, and we do a kind of a cool thing where for everyone whose camera is on during that time while our DJ is going, we will spotlight folks who are on with the cameras on. And I think it's, people are already kind of grooving to the music, but when the spotlight is on them, they go wild, they go crazy. And so it's during those times where the spotlight's not on me, I'll like change an outfit, put some kind of glasses or mask on or something. And then by the time it comes back to me, I can be kind of silly, but it's engaging enough and people are looking out for it enough that it's one of those things that keeps folks engaged, and it works.
What a great idea. So you're hosting an event, the spotlight's on you, you're the MC, you spotlight someone else. When it comes back to you, you're dressed differently, you've got a problem.
Yeah, I'm dressed differently, I look different. And yeah, and
awesome.
They react to it. They really do like it.
Right. How funny. What a great idea. Do you have any of the props in your house right now?
I do. Let's see.
In your house and near you?
I know, right? It has to be most times, although I am known to like get up, run to the room, go find something, and then come back with it. So a couple of things. So this is, let's see. And I'll just change in front.
Yeah. We'll pretend that like you can say curtain.
Right.
Open curtain.
Right. So, this is, and it's funny because I think this only works in quarantine, but it's like what people will call my DJ D-Nice look because, the DJ has been doing all of the quarantine parties. So if I do, if I have this on with a little chain or something, or even, chains and sunglasses, like that's what they consider like, oh, that's his D-Nice look. You know what I mean? And so I'll do something like that. Most times it's funny, I'll have my hair up. So when I take it down, that's even another big thing for folks.
Right.
And then this, very random, but I have, we've been wearing, even though this is not the mask that you need right now in quarantine, or in social distancing, it's a mask nonetheless. Right. I'll throw something like that on.
What a great idea. I mean, really anybody in their office, like if we look around, we live in a box of props, right? Absolutely. Our homes are boxes of props. Our offices are boxes of props. We can use things to explain stuff, but the costume changes in between. I'm going to steal that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's funny because on some of these calls, now that I've done it, others have taken to it. I actually have, and I know she wouldn't mind me sharing this because she does this on the camera and we've talked about it. I have someone who actually has a number of wigs at their house. Oh, and great. They literally will change hair in between, like, the camera being off of them and then being back on. And people love it. Then, of course, there's also the use of backgrounds. And so that's another dimension. I'll put up, semi-embarrassing throwback photos of myself that makes folks laugh and, allows them to see me a little bit differently and not necessarily in that same professional setting for just
right, right.
Again, it's another way to engage.
Right. And do you ever do that kind of thing in a meeting, like with your supervisors?
So the only thing I'll do in the meetings at the most is change my backgrounds. I have a picture of both the centers that I run.
Okay.
And so, often I'll have one center up and maybe mid-sentence, like while my boss is looking down at something, I'll switch it. And she'll look back up, she's like, wait a minute. I said, yeah, I changed it. I have to represent both areas, so why not?
Clever. And it is engaging because they are paying more attention when you do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Another question about the virtual world, and it's something that you said to me in the past. You said part of your attitude throughout this is that you've had a real positive experimental attitude. And you said, I'm not sure this is going to work, but
yeah.
explain that sort of way of thinking.
Well, no, absolutely. And it's one of those things, if we think about it again, because this is new for a lot of us. I mean, we've used Zoom literally for like meeting with someone or, in a space where you're not together.
Right.
And so now because, as student affairs folks, we have to program and we have to engage students. There's so many different things that we would do naturally on campus that some of it translates, some of it doesn't. But even when we were in person, a lot of our stuff is like trial and error. Let's try this. Let's see if it works. If the students like it, great. If they don't, we won't do that again. I think it's the same thing here where it's like, let's try it for once. Let's see if, this kind of, for me, the first big try I had was that program where it was a social event. And again, because there's that whole, DJ D Nice and Club Quarantine thing that he's been doing, I said, hey, we have a DJ that DJs all of our in-person events. So I called him. I said, hey, look, we're doing this event. I know that these are the 2 plugins that you need. And I said, just try it. I don't know what it's going to be like for people to sit at home and listen to a DJ. We'll just see. And again, as soon as the music started, they were up. I mean, people were out of their chairs like they were at a regular party by themselves at home, and they love it. And we've been doing it so regularly, and folks look forward to it. So it's one of those things where, try it, see if it takes. If it doesn't, what part of it, what parts of it did work, maybe what didn't, scrap those things, and don't be afraid to try something else new and different as well.
Right. Do you know, so is it like, do you have specific people that you want to make sure at that event, they're going to dance right away? Is it like a normal dance where people are sort of hanging back and they're waiting to see, like, as soon as a couple people are dancing, then they turn their camera on, like, okay, I'll dance with you too then?
Yeah, they're definitely, I have that kind of faithful crew of folks that I know are going to be on. I know they're engaged. And once they start, other folks will come along and they'll do it as well. I think the funnier part is when I have folks who maybe haven't been on before, who come on and they're kind of like, wait, you can see it in their face. They're like, is this like a real, like a party? And then you give them like 10 minutes and it's almost like they've been here the whole time. They get it, they understand it. They fall right in line. It's a beautiful thing.
It occurred to me also, here's a funny way of thinking about it. So you've got a screen full of dancers, right? You can lock in with anybody and pretend that that's the person you're dancing with.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Exactly. That's the other funny part, because I think for me, it's,
right.
We're so distant and folks want to engage with, their friends and folks they haven't seen. So that is something that some people will do, and you'll see.
So there could be 25 people on the screen. And I can be like, I'm dancing with John right now. Like, this is our dance. This is just us. I don't see anybody else. I think it's wonderful. What a great idea. And technology-wise, what are those plugins? Like, if anybody listening to this interview, are there lots of kinds of plugins for someone to be a DJ online, or is it specific?
So there's a tool, and I gotta remember the name of it.
We just stopped the recording so that we could look up some information to help all of you out there. John, what are the plugins for our viewers today so they can be DJs?
So the biggest thing, and this is, like I said, for me, I have an actual, like, full-fledged DJ that does this for me, right? Yeah. So all that he needed. He already had a mixer. He had a small mixer that he uses in his DJ sets. But the other piece is called an iRig, and that iRig.
IRIG.
Yes. And all he has to do is he plugs it. I believe it goes through his phone, and there's like another connection to his computer to what he uses to mix, and that is how he streams the music through, or basically DJs the music through his phone onto our Zoom. And that's he has to use that particular piece for his phone. I know there's some other probably larger, more expensive connections that folks can use with their computers. I also know of a friend of mine, while she's not a DJ per se, she uses, actually, she doesn't really use much outside of certain settings on Zoom to make sure that she can hear her music at a certain level. Because she's not a DJ, she just finds a good mix and will push play and let that play. But it will sound like I'm actually playing music from my own laptop. So it's got a really, really great quality sound to it. So those are the things that we use. And again, it makes it clear and it makes it really engaging. It's not like I'm just playing music off of my phone and hoping that you can hear the volume.
It's a direct line in, and it's coming out of my speaker sounding good. And you've got a lot of people dancing.
Yes, they're up.
Visually, it's exciting. The students are having fun. You don't really have. Do you have to chaperone much in those?
No, there's no need to chaperone. It's it's just great to watch them enjoy themselves. And I will say this too: get one of those kind of group line dances, right? That people do. That's the fun part, to watch everyone sit there and do the electric slide, right?
Oh, wow, that's cool. Yeah.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Neat. That's very neat. Have you had, looking back over the last few months, do you have a favorite event? Do you have like one standout event that you really love?
I would say the event that, really I've enjoyed. I've done it twice now, I think. I participated in one, and then I've actually conducted it twice, are the scavenger hunts.
Oh, really?
Yes. Those are fun to do. And you can do it one of two ways. The first time I did it, we literally had them go run after something, bring it back, show it off, and then made them go run again. The next time, we put items on the screen.
Okay.
So, just see them and go. They had like 10 minutes to go get everything. And I think the funny part for me was literally watching people run back and forth across the screen or around their house to go find everything. Those are actually a lot of fun.
Sorry to interrupt. When you said it, immediately I was like, John, give me a thing to scab. Can you give me one? Can you? Now remember, I'm in a building. I'm in the Global Education Center in Nashville, Tennessee. So I don't know if so what would possibly be in a Global Education Center?
Let's see, what would be there? Let's see, can you bring back your favorite book? It could be any kind of textbook, a novel, anything that I'm sure there are books in the Global Education Center.
There's lots of books in the Global Education Center. Oh, I brought back this really heavy book on that shelf over there. This is about the Lakota tribe.
Okay.
Yeah, and these are wonderful. There's a whole bunch over there on the wall. But yeah, okay. So I just did the scavenger hunt.
You did, right?
I love it.
Exactly. And the fun part is a lot of times folks will, as they're showing off, I'll say, okay, show us your book. If you got a book, show us your book. So everyone will hold it up. Sometimes I'll kind of shout people out if there's familiar text that I see, or, someone will just start talking, especially if their mic is on. They'll just start telling a story about why this is their favorite book, or, they've been reading this and they gained this insight.
It can lead to more conversation.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So do you want to, your big takeaways from the last few months is that you are able to engage with students online. You recommend that we bring the energy, right? That as the facilitator, that we show up ready to rock, bring energy, and that your personality is a big part, but also the use of props.
Yes,
has been really helpful in making the events more fun.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, this is the stuff that we would naturally do in person, right? To bring that energy, to get that buy-in from the students. And I think in this virtual world, especially because students are, going to classes on Zoom or in front of their computer and all these other things, there is a bit of fatigue. But if you bring that energy, they'll go along with you, and they'll walk with you, and they'll have a great time doing it.
Yeah, the fatigue is forgotten.
Yes, exactly. It passes, it dissipates. And honestly, when you're at, programs and events that we do, oftentimes they'll forget that it's a just a Zoom thing, because they'll leave with a new energy, refreshed and ready to do whatever it is that they got next.
Well, let's come up with an acronym, BFFFF. Bring the fun, forget the fatigue.
I love it.
BFF, the BFFF.
There you go.
BFFF. Bring fun, forget fatigue.
Yes.
John Rawlins the third.
The BF3.
All right. Well, yeah, the BF cubed.
There we are. There
BF cubed. Or the big Ephesus.
you go.
All right. I know what an amazing singer you are because I've watched you over the years perform and share videos. Have you been singing a lot in quarantine, like at home from your stage?
From my stage, yeah. So funny enough, a lot of the music I do is church-based or spiritual music, and I've been a worship leader for a long time. And so I moved out here to California a year ago and was the worship leader at my church in DC. When they went virtual, they called me. They're like, "Hey, can you do worship for us virtually?" And so just about every week or every other week, I'll be here and I record and I send video to them, and so they have it to incorporate into their service.
And are you using any different microphones other than your computer mic?
I'm getting a new mic. It's not here yet. I'm getting a new mic. I actually have just been using my computer, and I have a little audio background, so I've been mixing stuff in simple platforms like iMovie.
Right.
Or in Adobe and in Audition to get things to the levels that I want them, and it produces a decent quality sound outside of having like my formal studio that I used to have back in New York. So we'll get there, but yeah, it's been good and it's working.
Now might be a good time for me to disclose the truth about my setup.
Because
you said you're getting a new microphone. You've been successfully engaging students on your laptop, right?
Yes.
With the microphone and the camera from your computer.
Yeah.
The computer camera the camera that I'm using right now is the camera that's on my computer. The microphone that I'm using right now is the microphone in my computer. This is a prop. This is purely for show. This is a stage, and I've set my stage, right? I've set my stage. So I want to encourage everybody watching this that you already have the technology to do what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Already have it. Like this, I as a performer and having done plays and stuff, I see this space that we have as our stage. How do we set the stage for our show? And the technology is already there. We're very lucky that we have it in our computers. Anyway, that was my point. But so your singing is still getting across to the folks in DC.
It is. It was funny because literally one Sunday you could watch me singing in DC at the same time as me singing with a group here in California. And it kind of weirded me out, but it was true because I was able to send a video and record another one live with the group. So it does make you accessible and still allows for things to happen even in this kind of funky time that we're in.
Right. You are as close to your friends in DC as you are to your friends at your college.
True. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Now, I guess the next question would you be willing to sing a song for me, or would you like to do a duet, or?
I know, that's the one thing I want to perfect. I know there's a lot of people have done those kind of like Zoom choir and Zoom group things. Yeah. Of course, it's not what people think. It's a lot of mixing and a lot of
recorded. Yeah, it's pre-recorded. Yeah,
but I can sing something.
I would. All right. I am your audience until the rest of the world sees this.
Okay. I'm gonna do just a little piece of one of my favorite songs, just because it was playing before I got on with you today, It's a Beyonce song. Who doesn't love Beyonce? Let's see. Baby, it's you. You're the one I love. You're the one I need. You're the only one I see. Come on, baby, it's you. You're the one that gives your all. You're the one that I can always call when I need to make everything stop. Finally, you put my love on top.
All right. Not a lot of people like, okay, you can quit your day job.
I love my day job too much to quit my day job. So I just incorporate it into my life. You know what I mean?
That was great, man. I love that. I love your singing. I love your voice.
Thank you.
I love the energy that you bring. All right, well, thanks. This is John Rawlins III, everybody. Everybody in your seats or on your couches or in your kitchens at home. Everybody's clapping right now. I can feel it.
Thank you.
I feel it. I feel it. Awesome. So even with all the fun that we have together, this platform really allows you to also have very personal and difficult conversations too.
It does, yeah, and especially March 16th was my last day physically on campus. So we've been doing all these programs and just having some of our general programs and conversations. But of course, when you had the killings of several Black individuals across the country, I think the energy started to shift a little bit, the mood started to shift, and folks wanted to engage and to talk about how they were feeling, wanted to learn more. I know there have been a lot of conversations or desires for folks to have conversations around allyship. And so using Zoom, I was able to help put together a program, or really conceptualize a program for my institution as a space for students to speak out about, the impact of these events on their life, how they were feeling, how it, some of this impacts them as students, specifically talking about Black students. And initially, I thought it was just going to be, the Black Student Center that I run. I thought it was just going to be kind of, our smaller program. But I also felt like there needed to be a space where others could hear these voices and hear how these students were feeling, so that as, staff, faculty, other students, administration, we could really have these conversations about how to best support these students right now, and even moving forward as we're starting to see this shift a little bit in our culture and in our climate. So it became a open event where we asked students to primarily speak, to talk about their experiences, and for our faculty, staff, alumni, administrators to listen. And so I had about 400 people or more show up for that event. And for the most part, it was very respectful.
Yeah.
Folks were listening intently. You could see, again, just being able to scroll through the, pages and pages of folks who were on there, because we didn't do it as a webinar, we did it as a regular Zoom meeting. You can see people listening, and you can see people thinking. You can see those who were really sharing their hearts and what they were feeling. On one hand, unfortunately, we did have a couple of what we call, Zoom bombers to come into the event. We realized later they were folks from outside the institution. They weren't from inside. And it was a little jarring for folks, I'll be honest with you. But one of the big takeaways I had from that was, as the host in that moment, I had to maintain my composure and make sure that we got through that moment, because that was about 15 to 20 minutes into the event is when those folks started to show themselves. And, I was grateful that, one, I had my, IT team who was there to help, scope through and look and see who was where. And also, my colleagues who were helping also to identify where some maybe problem areas were, because we did have a couple of people who, their screen names or the images that they showed weren't positive.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it was, for a lot of folks, an eye-opener for folks who had not seen what that kind of hate looks like for real. And so when at the end of the event, I asked those in attendance to think about 3 questions. And I said, email me your responses, as a way to reflect on what we've discussed and kind of your commitment moving forward. And literally every email that I got, was appreciative for the space and for the program.
Mhm.
It also mentioned that moment or those moments where we had those Zoom bombers. And some folks, talked about how it was unfortunate, but they were glad that others were able to see what that looks like. And for some people themselves, they said, I've never seen that before. And now it makes me, more dedicated to making sure that things like this don't happen again, and understanding that this is what many marginalized groups go through, right? And not just, on the laptop or on the screen, but they go through this in their personal lives and in person, things of that nature. So it actually ended up being a great program, and folks learned a lot. And I think we have to, especially in this moment, in what we're dealing with right now, we have to be able to use these platforms to still have those conversations. And the other thing I'll say to it, and I know we had talked about this before, I think, of course, it would have been interesting if we were in person. I think folks would have wanted to show up. But of course, when we were, not socially distant, not in quarantine, everyone was, going about their normal lives. So some folks would have had a desire to maybe come, but had other commitments, or, folks said, oh, I have family I have to tend to and things I have to do, so I can't make it. This literally put the conversation in a place that was accessible to them wherever they were. I had some folks who were on, and then they had to go and maybe go get children from a location. And so they would just play it from their phone and listen in. So it's not like they had to leave the conversation completely.
Right. That's neat.
You didn't have as many excuses maybe to not be there. You could actually be there and engage in a level that was comfortable for you, but still in a meaningful way to hear, and then think about, again, after this, what does this mean for me? How do I move forward? And the responses I got were just incredible. And I'm already starting to see some folks who were at the event do some of the things that they said they were going to commit themselves to. And it's been beautiful.
Great. That's
this
great.
is a platform to use.
And you did it right here on Zoom. You were not in an auditorium.
Right.
One of the other things that I'm thinking about is that in an auditorium, and I've been in a lot of auditoriums, as have you, when there's a Q&A and somebody stands up and they're 78 rows back, and they get up and they maybe have a microphone, but somebody on the whole other side of the auditorium hears the question. But in this platform, the person speaking is right here. So
right.
Every contribution you can see the speaker.
Yes.
Right? That's neat.
Yes. And it's so helpful, because you're right. When you're in those kind of larger situations, if I don't hear what the question is, I disengage a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And even the speaker or the presenter is answering the question, I've still already disengaged just a little bit. And so I may not necessarily even hear what they're saying or the full context in which the question was asked. But now, because the person's right here, I get full context, and I'm still able to fully engage in the conversation and the discussion. And it's wonderful.
It is cool, isn't it? It is cool.
Mm-hmm.
John, thanks so much for your time.
No problem.
I will hopefully see you soon. We can Zoom every week. We should show up on each other's events.
I'm with it.
Let's crash each other's events.
Yes. And now that every time I go to a new institution, I give myself like the year to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, my second year, I'm like, okay, so who do I know? What do I want to do? How do I, So now that I'm in my second year and I know the folks who run these different things. So there's a guy named Jason.
All right, well, once again, a big thank you to the second grade mayor of Magic School Bus Town, John Rawlins III. Thank you. Let's give each other 10. Bam. All right, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
I'll see you soon.
Yes. All right,